I drive my administration crazy because because we have two different functions. There's a security, and mine is education, and they're walking in. We have a whole wing, so they walk in our wing, but they're bringing that trauma with them. And my goal is to tell them to check the trauma at the door. So it's a lot of trust building,
Welcome, everyone. Our guest today operates at the intersection of some of our society's most complex issues: faith, law enforcement, civil rights, and education. Khaled Ashraf has spent nearly 2 decades on the police force, or in the police force, I should say, served in the Army Reserve, and now stands on the front lines of advocacy. He's seen the school to prison pipeline from the inside and is now working to dismantle it through education and chaplaincy. Please welcome Khaled Ashraf.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Worries. No worries. So I want you to just give us a quick little just backstory, just kind of like a personal bio of your life from just, growing up to where you are today, how you decided to get into law enforcement, what made you decide to become a chaplain, and then education. How you got into that vein?
Well, I grew up in Philly, born and raised in Philly, PA, and went to the schools in Philly. And it's funny, I never planned on being a police officer. I just wound up having a kid early and being a father early. So the police department, they were the only ones that were like, hey, we'll take you right now, because it was just as bad then as it is now. And they were like, we'll take you, high school diploma, you got it? All right, we'll take you. So I just became a police officer, and then I never expected to take me to places that it did. But then after a while, what I started learning was, man, these guys, they wouldn't be out here if they had opportunity. And I kept coming back to that over and over and over again. And then after a while, like the older officers and everybody was like, hey, man, you really need to go back to school. You need to do something with yourself, because one day you might get tired of this. And that was probably the best advice somebody ever told me, because I took it seriously, and I wound up going to school. And then I finally got the opportunity to start getting into teaching. And at first I was just doing it substituting, just to get my feet wet, and teaching ESL courses to folks of second language. And then I got the opportunity to really get more into it. And then, ironically enough, I started working in the same schools, in the same neighborhoods that I was a police officer. And that's what really opened up my eyes to things, because I literally was teaching the grandkids of the people that I had locked up many years ago. And that's what really started me wow, I'm getting to see the whole thing full circle. And that's what started to really open up my eyes. And then just getting into chaplaincy was just another opportunity for me to work with people. And I had done a lot of counseling. I had a background in counseling. And then when I heard that I could be a chaplain and actually just talk to people, and it just opened up a great opportunity for me. So for me, it was always about serving and being able to be there for people. Because for me, it was always, well, somebody helped me when I was at my lowest point. So I want to be able to, help others. And that's what got me to this point now.
Wow. You mentioned a phrase that I think is a powerful phrase as an educator. And I think it's often overlooked. And that phrase that you just mentioned was, you realize during your time as a police officer that if a lot of these guys or girls or whoever had opportunity, they wouldn't be out here.
Oh, right? Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So what can we as a community do to provide more opportunities, or in what ways can, in what ways can we step up? Everyone. And I mean everyone.
You know, it's funny. One of the programs that we're doing inside the institution where I'm at, outside of Philly, is bringing teachers in and actually having those discussions. Because one of the things that the teachers are saying when they're coming into our institution is, I had no idea, you know, and you would be surprised how many of the students in the classroom either have either their father or a loved one is already incarcerated, already, you know, involved in the prison system. And I think that recognizing that is probably one of the first steps. You know, take advantage of the opportunity to go learn more inside one of the prisons and hear the stories, because there's a lot of men and women that will be more open to telling you how you can change things for others. And that's one thing that was probably really impactful over the summer. Last summer, we had the opportunity to bring the teachers in from Philly, and then just hearing the guys tell their stories to the teachers, and then the teachers walking away with that, and then being able to go into this school year and actually apply it, you know, it was a big win.
You know, hearing you say that, I almost think that should be incorporated into teacher training. Yes. Hearing you say that, like, you know, they expose you to all these different things. I feel like they should also expose you to education behind bars or education.
Yes.
Then maybe it will humanize some of these incarcerated individuals a lot more, right?
Yes.
And not only that, you know, sometimes there can be a stigma around folks that are incarcerated as them not being intelligent. And I know me personally, I have had the honor and privilege of having conversation with some folks that have been formerly incarcerated, and they were brilliant, you know? And so
you mentioned the formerly incarcerated, and I got to get into that, because that's what I wrote about, the hidden curriculum. Mm-hmm. The hidden curriculum of paternal engagement theory. So I came up with that theory because it talks about just that. Those that are, once they're back on the street, once they're back in society, how whether schools intentionally or unintentionally do it, they act as if they don't even exist. And they're there. They're willing to step up. You know, I'm working with these guys every single day, but they're saying that the schools don't even want to, you know, talk to us. They don't even want to acknowledge us as being fathers. And that's a really big problem. So talk about schools, the hidden curriculum of just acknowledging a father, acknowledging that he exists, and giving him the permission to be a part of the child's schooling is really important.
100%. 100%. Man, like you said something that just kind of, you know, like hearing that you have fathers out there and the schools are willfully ignoring them.
Yeah.
Just because, and let me make sure I'm understanding you right. Just because of their previous status, is that what?
And you know what? A lot of times it is, but really it's bigger than that, though, because they'll ignore you and me, right. And it's not even intentional, but it's just so focused on the father's absent, whether it be that, you know, he's just not available or whatever. And we become, as fathers, because I'm a father, and we call him if Johnny is acting up. But if Johnny just made the honor roll, we don't get a phone call. It's like we don't exist. We're only there. So it gives the impression that we're only there for punishment. Mm. And when you look at the guys that were formerly incarcerated and now they're back out, they're trying to, you know, re-engage in society, re-engage in their children's lives. They've already, you know, served their time and Now they're punished even with their child's school, because it's like, oh, only call them if they call them. Only call them if Johnny is acting up. But
Right.
if anything else is going on, it's nothing there. It's nothing there.
So, in your opinion, if we invested more in education in
Yes.
some of these areas, what effect would that have on these youngsters going to prison?
I think it will have a profound effect, because right now, a lot of fathers, whether they be formally incarcerated or not, feel that they don't have the permission to be there. So it, they're removing that partnership. They're removing a strong part of that student's structure by not
Right.
acknowledging that the father is a part. Even if they are available only at a distance, they're still there.
Right.
So it helps to support the student. It helps support that student that might already be having some kind of trauma, because the father is incarcerated or previously incarcerated. So you help rebuilding that family structure. You're helping support that student. And plus, you're also building relationships, which we know we're supposed to be doing with our students.
100%. 100%.
So but it starts with acknowledgement, though. And
Yes.
that's the one thing. That's why I called it the hidden curriculum. I mean, it's
Yep.
right there in plain sight. But once you start to think about it and like, wow, I never noticed that. It's
Right.
really hard to unsee it afterwards.
Now, within the hidden curriculum, and maybe your experience or experiences that you know through indirectly,
Yeah.
how much of this do you feel is directed or targeted towards marginalized communities? Do you feel like those more affluent schools, do you feel like they go out of their way, or maybe not go out of their way, but it's just common practice to engage both parents versus in a marginalized
No,
community school?
no,
Or,
and that's a great question, because marginalized communities already have that strike against them.
yep.
But what I've noticed was fathers just across the board. It's just moms are the default, and that's what, again, it's in plain sight. And fathers a lot of times feel like the door is closed to them when the door was never locked. All you had to do, but they feel like they have to ask for permission, whereas the schools can actually take an active part and try to invite the fathers, try to make sure that they have opportunities for the fathers to come in. I remember
Right.
one school when I was still teaching, a school did a muffins for mom and the donuts for dad day.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
brother, I'm telling you, when they did the donuts for dad, dads came out. But it was really interesting. If you looked at the room, they were in there and they were happy to be there, but they were standing around because they're like almost like an imposter syndrome. Like, man, I'm in a room, but I don't know what to do. Nobody
Right.
really ever invited me in before,
Right.
like I'm really here. I'm really, So me recognizing it, I was doing my best to make them feel comfortable so that they would want to come back more and more and take an active part. But it's really important that schools recognize that whether you're in a marginalized community or whatever, that we really have to engage fathers. We have to be intentional about reaching out to fathers, asking, even on the forums, for fathers' information. Can we communicate with them? Unless there's a court order saying that you can't, look, reach out to the dad, and give him as much information as possible so that he can stay engaged in his child's life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, with you being a principal in an institution, have you noticed any trends between students that may have had that strong father figure in their life versus the ones that have not, in terms of coming into the prison or receiving some type of sentence or repeat offending or anything like that?
Yeah, I have. And right now, what I'm noticing, the trend is we're definitely getting a super young right now, and we're also getting a super old. We're not getting too many in the middle.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we're not getting too many in the middle, which is really interesting. And the super young, what I'm noticing from them is the father figure is missing.
Mm,
And I had those conversations practically every single day. Their father figure is missing from the real young ones. But ironically enough, their fathers a lot of times. And then that's when the conversation begins about how they want to be more active in their child's life because they didn't have that, you know.
right.
And that's where a lot of these stories that I'm learning from is from the younger ones and how they're missing out on that.
Right. So when it comes to some of the skills and the deficits that these younger individuals have that are in the institution, that means that education behind bars has to look different, right? And
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't mean just look different from obviously the setting. I mean it
Right.
has to look different because their needs are probably much
Oh yeah,
different.
definitely. Oh, definitely, definitely.
So talk with us about that. Like, what are some of the things that you're providing or you're making sure to provide or you want to provide in the future? You're not there yet, but you want to take us through that.
I know I drive my administration crazy because because we have two different functions. You know, there's a
Yeah.
security, and mine is education, and they're walking in. We have a whole wing, you know, so they
Yeah.
walk in our wing, but they're bringing that trauma with them. And
Mm,
my goal is to tell them to check the trauma at the door.
mm,
So it's a lot of trust building, you know, before we can even do anything else, got to build the trust. And one thing that I'm really intentional about is making sure that when they come up on that wing, that it does not look like the rest of the institution. I don't want them to have the feeling like they're in the institution. Yeah, I mean clearly they're wearing the uniform and that, but leave that mentality out there, you know? So it definitely looks a whole lot different. In one way, I'm very fortunate to say that computers are not really a big part of it, so they can unplug from that. But it just means that you got to go back to old school where you're teaching them, you know, pen and paper and really getting down to what they need.
right. Right. And man, you kind of touched on this. It's almost kind of like you know where I want to go, and you probably do because you touched on it. But I want you to elaborate a little more. Is because that was kind of something else that was swinging in my head. Is that dichotomy, right? Because like you
Yeah.
said, you're focused on educating. They're
Yes.
focused on security. Those are two
Yes.
different things. One
Yes.
is custody and control. One is growth.
Yes.
One is growth and freedom. Right.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
how do you find that balance?
Some days is easier than the others
Right.
because again they come with that trauma
Right.
and some days when they're coming there and the weight of the world is heavy on them, you got to take a minute and give them what they need.
Right.
And sometimes what they need is just a minute for you just to listen. And it becomes, oh man, you know, leave him alone. You know, he know what he got into or whatever. And it's like, no, I can't do that. That's not what I'm here for. You know,
Right.
that's not what I got into this for.
Right.
So sometimes, you know, you might get called a couple of names, but at the end of the day, you know, it's like most of the students that I have are eventually going to get back out there. So it's
Okay.
like, do we want to educate them and make them better, you know, citizens for the community? Because listen, they're going to be our neighbors. You know, I
Yes.
can't tell you how many times I ran into people on the street over the years. So they're going to be out there. So do you want to educate them and make them better? Or are you really that concerned about having a steady paycheck?
Mm, man. So when it comes to the actual courses or
Yeah.
content or curriculum, walk us through just, I mean, you ain't got to get specific, but just
Yeah,
walk us
yeah.
through some of that. Like, are we talking, there's more of a focus on like life skills and emotional regulation, or is there or is there a focus on, math and science, or is there a focus on more of the trades, or is it, a blend of all those?
We got all that. So I have adults. So we have the GED. If they get through that, then we have a college program. We got a partnership where they can walk away with their associates. I've been pushing for a bachelor's program, so that's something that I'm trying desperately to get right now. Because listen, the more education you could walk back out there with, whether it be a degree or a trade or something, the better off you'll be. So we have vocations. We just got another one where they can make some glasses and they can go out there on the street and make good money doing that kind of stuff. And one of the things I always tell guys when they come to me and it's time for them to go home, I got to sign off on them and everything. One of the things I tell every single last one of them, hey, listen, go home and don't come back unless, and I always add this last part, unless you coming back to speak. Because, look, come back and tell these knuckleheads don't do what I did.
Right. Right.
But we teach them the regular stuff, the math, the science, and all that. One thing I'm trying to do right now, and it's a struggle because of where I work, but AI is the newest thing. Yes. So I'm trying to figure out how to, teach them AI with such limitations. So we're trying to make sure, again, that we're keeping up with what's going on in the real world out there. So it's a challenge, but we're doing it.
That's amazing. It really is. And I mean, yeah, that's amazing. And needed, very much needed. You hear stories of, or at least I've heard stories. Let me rephrase that. I've heard stories of individuals that have been incarcerated and they actually put their time to good use and came out with an associate's degree or something, only to get out into, the real world and face the obstacle of, although they're educated, not being able to secure employment because of what's on their record. Right. Yeah. With that said, is your education program, have y'all created any partnerships, or in the future, will y'all create any partnerships so that hopefully to alleviate that hurdle for some of the individuals that come out of your institution?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm constantly talking to people, constantly sending out messages, trying to get people to come in there constantly. And I always trying to get the pulse of the students there also. What do you need? And I love to hear those experiences. One of the biggest things that they need, whether they admit it or not, is public speaking. So that's one of the things I'm trying to get right now. We have it in there, and it's on a rotation, basis. Folks come in and they teach it, but I want to get something more like a Toastmasters or something where they can learn how to, have those conversations, learn how to properly debate, learn how to have an educational argument, learn how to articulate yourself. Because, I mean, let's face it, you can have a degree, but it doesn't mean that you know how to use that degree to your advantage. Right. So those are a lot of skills that we teach them. But yeah, I'm constantly making relationships with others. Like, oh, you do this? Listen, why don't you come in and teach my guys something? So
right,
definitely.
So then let's go there. Let's go there because this is going to be shared, on the audio podcasting platforms. And actually, this is my season 2. And so I'll be going video too. So we'll be sharing video as well as the website. So let's do it. So obviously we can't put the business out there. We know that, right. but they'll recognize your face, right? Right. So what do you need? What do you need? Like, or what could, and I don't mean you, obviously, I don't mean you personally, but I'm phrasing it that way for a reason, right?
Yeah. So what do you need? I think one of the biggest things that I do come across, brother, and it kind of bothers me to the core, is folks will reach out to me, but then it's like, oh, this is what I charge for speaking engagement, this and that. Bro, don't waste my time. Because it's you're not in it for the right reason. And plus, it's the government. They don't have the money. They're not going to pay. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're not going to pay.
Right.
But if you're like, you know what, this was a circumstance that I can relate to, and I really want to come in, I really want to give back. Oh man, let's talk, let's build, because those guys need so much, Think about your neighbor down the street that you like, man, this guy needs X, Y, and Z. Well, we probably need, somebody to come in and teach them X, Y, and Z. They got this group. I wish I could remember the name of the organization because I definitely would shout them out. But they bring ties in and teach the guys how to tie the ties. And they do a whole lot of really good things so that when the guys get back out there on the street, they look presentable. And I'm telling you, bro, when you look presentable, they used to say the clothes make the man. Just the way that they look. You wouldn't even believe that it's the same person when they're putting their tie on because they stand up straight. They look different. They act different. So we need more of folks coming in and want to actually genuinely just work with these guys and make a better man. Got you.
And you in the Pennsylvania area, right?
Yes, sir.
Got it. All right. You talked about just now, you mentioned how the clothes make the man. Yeah. And this, I already wanted to ask this question, but I kind of pivoted for a second. But what has education done for the morale of those that are, currently, behind bars in your institution? How have you seen that change in them?
I mean, again, I need them to change their mindset. So for me, culture and climate is probably one of the biggest things I focus on. I got to have a positive energy up there. You know what I mean? So I'm fortunate enough to have good folks, that's teaching them, that's passionate about it and that want to support it. So it makes it a whole lot easier. So those guys are really appreciative of coming up to an environment where they feel comfortable, where they feel like they don't have to, have that persona that they might have, in the other parts of the facility. So that's really, really big. And clothes make the man. So that means I can't go in there dressing like a slob because I need to go in there making sure I dress what right looks like. You know what I mean? So I got to make sure that my tie is straight. I had people say, hey, yo, you need to fix that tie. Well, appreciate you. Thank you. And I'll fix that tie, because they need to see somebody that looks like them that's not doing something that's negative.
Right.
And so it's really important. It's really important.
Now, when it comes to the education program, is it open to anyone, or is there like a very strict criteria to even get into it?
No, it's open to anyone. And we have this thing every week where we welcome all the new guys and I go in and I give the spiel and I tell them, I said, listen, my job is to make you a better version of the person that you walked in, Right. So, no, I welcome it to everybody. And I tell them no matter how long you're going to be here, even if you do nothing but go to the library and pick up a book, just make a better version of yourself. Time is 24 hours a day. You're going to be here for 24 hours a day. Make the time worth it.
Wow. So I know you said earlier in the podcast that you said you want to be a man of service, or you consider yourself a person of service. Mm-hmm. And so you've always wanted to serve in some way, some capacity. Tell us about that transition, or tell us about you making that turn to want to go serve in a prison. And I specifically asked that because I would imagine that when people, and I don't know how much you share with people or not, but I would imagine when people hear your background, they kind of side eye you a little bit.
Yeah. I definitely don't talk too much about that when I'm at work.
So what was that key moment that you was like, you know what? I think I want to go here. I can serve here and I can be of benefit here.
I think the more I started actually teaching in the public schools and getting more into the community and listening to my students in the community and seeing the parents that were coming up there and trying to figure out, well, where's the kink in this chain? Where is it? I don't get the disconnect. And then what I keep coming back to is fathers. Not saying that that a home that has a mom and a dad in it are perfect, but I noticed that a lot of the trauma, a lot of the things in the urban schools that I was teaching in Philadelphia, a lot of that trauma was around incarceration. A lot of that trauma was around abuse and the things that, the students I have now, experience either at their hands or they were, they were the victims of it themselves. So then for me, it was just, I want to go to fix that problem. It originally was, okay, well, I can't do it as a teacher, so I want to do it as an administrator. And then as an administrator, it was like, okay, well, I still don't, there's still more of a problem. How can I fix it? And then learning, okay, the prison, okay, yeah, and they need a principal there. Okay, well, you know what? That's where I'm going at.
It's so funny you said that, because when I originally I wasn't always a teacher. I became a teacher like later in life, and when I transitioned to being a teacher, it was because, like you said, like, oh, that's where I'm gonna go to make the change and help.
Exactly.
And like you literally just said, get in there, and you're like, oh no. And so now I'm currently on that path to get an administrative license, all that, and I've already figured it out. I'm like, this still ain't enough. And so
exactly.
It's so funny you say that, because that's kind of an internal conflict I'm going through it myself. Like, well, what do I need to do to invoke the most amount of change? You know what I'm saying, in the communities I serve. And so that's very interesting that you mentioned that you're constantly looking for how you could serve the need even greater.
But that's also why another reason why I came up with the hidden curriculum of paternal engagement is because let's have some serious conversations about education policy, particularly in urban schools. Let's talk about how we can engage with fathers and start rebuilding families.
Right.
And let's talk about the trauma that these students are bringing in every day that we're ignoring, but it's still there. But yet we're ignoring, and the teachers are expected to teach through the trauma. Well, if you don't recognize that the trauma's in a room, well, how are you going to teach through it?
Right. No, for sure. And man, you gonna mess around to get me started, because I have to check myself a lot, because I'm currently not in an urban environment, but I was, and I do hope to return one day. I mean that, because that's where my heart is, teaching in those urban environments. But like you talk about the hidden curriculum, and in that aspect of it. Another aspect that I often witnessed in the urban environment is you had teachers that, we'll just say, in my opinion, were unable to connect with the students.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I will qualify that by saying I don't believe that they were unable to connect just because some of them came from a different life.
Right.
I believe they were unable to connect because they were unwilling to connect.
Yes.
Or maybe it was so different. They were kind of paralyzed. They didn't want to offend. They didn't want to do that, because you do find some really good teachers that they just worry about how they worry about how they present, and they don't want to do something wrong. And in that, they can become paralyzed and not move at all.
Right.
But I think I can't speak for the urban environment you was, but the urban school I was, even though the demographic of students was, I think 70% of color or more.
Yes.
The teachers, it flipped the other way. The teachers were 70% Caucasian or more.
Right. Yes. Which we see in a lot of districts.
Right. And so, and there's nothing, I'm not going to say there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to say, I have been able to observe or go into schools that, teachers that didn't look like the students were doing everything they could to educate themselves, engage, and honor their culture in a respectable manner and all that stuff. And you can see the difference there. And so I do wonder how much of that has an effect of, when you have teachers that don't understand the culture, or, I don't know. I'm trying to be mindful of how I talk about this, but I do think it's something that needs to be addressed.
I think that as you prepare to move into administration, and even in your current role, look, PDs are a thing for educators no matter where you go. And look, instead of sitting through another boring PD, that's not really relevant. Maybe put it out there that, listen, why can't we, either if you're not going to, fund us to actually go there, maybe we do like a Zoom with a local, institution, and then be able to start to build that, and then hear from real experiences of the incarcerated folks that once were students and what they wish their teachers knew.
Right.
And I think that would they would get more out of that. The teachers would start to build empathy. The administrators would start to understand more about their students, and hopefully it would help.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm definitely on my journey. I'm taking notes on anything I can get, because it's administration and serving and helping to change lives for the good is a complex beast.
It really is.
You mentioned previously about the trauma surrounded with incarceration, right?
Yes.
And so what I wanted to ask you about that is a little bit more clarity is, are we talking about trauma of fearing to be locked up, or trauma because they have a parent that's locked up, or how far do those tentacles reach of the trauma when it comes to incarceration, and what is some of that trauma surrounding incarceration?
Well, not necessarily of being locked up. I didn't get too much of that, but more of safety. They don't feel safe. They don't feel like anyone necessarily has their best interest. If I could tell you like one central theme that runs through my school that I've heard, and even on the street, was no one's really there. So it's because the people that they expected to be there weren't. Like, let's say the father wasn't there for whatever reason, and the mother was just so stressed or so traumatized because she had no support system. She might have to work 2-3 jobs to make sure that the child gets what they need. So the mother isn't necessarily emotionally attached the way that they're supposed to be. So there's that gap, that's really missing. So there's that trauma, and then it's like the child doesn't have the words to express it. So that they might express it. So you might see it expressed through disciplinary referrals, which is one of the reasons why Black and brown, children are so high up on discipline referrals, because of stuff like that. So you might see it, shown in that way, because they just don't have the language to say, listen, I'm hurting inside, and nobody's really trying to, help with this trauma.
And it's always those discretionary referrals. Those are the referrals I can't stand to save my life. And any school I've been to has them.
Yes.
Because I guess when you're dealing with teachers, not every teacher's the same, and I get it. But those discretionary referrals, those really hurt Black and brown students bad.
Yes. Yes.
Little Johnny can blurt, do this, the same thing that Tyrese did. Little Johnny don't get the referral. He just gets several warnings, or something. But then Tyrese only did it twice. Little Johnny did it 7 times. Tyrese did it twice, and he got the referral already. And I can't.
And it's a big problem. It's a really big problem.
It is. But what's funny is I've seen it in every environment. It's almost like especially with those students that may already have some type of stigma attached, because at some point during their journey, they didn't have a good year. Right. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that once they have that experience of not having that good year, it follows them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens on the teachers talk,
Yep. For sure.
And that's the trauma that a lot of my students face, because it's like they can never, they feel like they can never get a clean slate no matter what they do, And like what you were saying earlier about how they have that degree now, and yet they still feel like they're not given what they need because of, their past.
Right. So what steps, and I probably asked this earlier just in a different way, but I'm not going to ask you that because I'm not going to put you in a box. So,
Go ahead.
He said, go ahead. So at this point, let me ask it this way. This is a little bit more friendly. Okay.
Okay.
Do you feel like institutions are truly about rehabilitation, or do you feel like institutions have the thought and the theory about rehabilitation, but they're not doing rehabilitation right?
I think at the end of the day, it's a business, and their business is the bottom line. But fortunately, that's not my business. And my business is to put them out of business.
Gotcha.
You got two separate, theories under the same roof. And unfortunately, for me, there's not enough people that are unplugged for me to, put them completely out of business. But that don't stop me from trying as hard as I possibly can.
I hear that. I hear that. Man, we're gonna have to link up in the future and do a part two. We're gonna have to.
Yes,
we're gonna have to.
Definitely.
But until then, what final thoughts do you have? Final thoughts, final words, anything that you want to get out there and make sure it gets said, known, whatever it is.
I say that probably the biggest thing is that this isn't about blaming fathers or schools. It's about responsibility and power. For the teachers in schools, give your students power. Make sure that you're giving families equal opportunities. Make sure that you're reaching out there and asking about fathers. Or, okay, they're somewhere. Give me an email address. Let me just start to build those relationships and let fathers know that the door is not locked. That's probably what I really want to say. The door was never locked, and give them the permission to step through it.
That's what's up. Well, Mr. Khaled, you don't understand how much I appreciate this. It's definitely gave me a different perspective. I think, I'm going to start even digging into this a little bit more because I need to get more familiar with education and institutions. That's a form of education that, unfortunately, I don't know a lot about. I don't.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, well, I want to thank you for having a conversation with me.
Thank you,
that is
brother.
helping
Thank
to
you.
redefine education.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.